Apple is said to have overtaken Samsung as China's top mobile brand. That's according to the latest data out of the China Brand Research Center. The firm said Chinese customers felt that Samsung put market share ahead of customer loyalty. Never a good thing. Samsung still leads in China when it comes to color TVs and monitors.
Trish, you and I last week were talking about Xiaomi, which of course is now the world's #3 by market share. This is a Chinese company that's done really well by pushing out rivals Samsung and Apple. I wouldn't really trust the results of the survey. It's 3,000 people. China has 1.4 billion people. One person that lives in Beijing has very different attitudes and preferences than someone who lives, for example, in like Hebei or, Wuhan.
And probably more money also, right?
More money, yeah, of course.
So, I mean, I guess it depends. If you call it a nice neighborhood, they're going to all be using Apple products. They're still a lot more expensive than Samsung products, and
especially
obviously Xiaomi. Yeah.
Or if you got them off the Chinese black market when they rolled out in the U.S. and they were shipping
right.
those over.
Remember that?
So if you have a few extra bucks in your pocket, then maybe that can pay up for this may or may not brand loyalty that you have over some of these less expensive smartphones.
Yeah, you can get a smartphone in China for as cheap as $50 in some places. An iPhone will cost you close to $1,000.
A real one.
China.
Okay.
A real one. Exactly.
All right,
some people might be think they're using iPhones and not
but
really
not actually.
using iPhones.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's not good for
It's an
brand
iPhone.
loyalty. Hey, do you use Pandora, Spotify? You do, right? One or the other or both?
No,
I use both of them.
No, I use Groove Shark, which I think is like gray area legal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Of course, of course. I happen to use both of them. Spotify, everyone, is said to be making more money in Europe for musicians than iTunes. You know, I actually don't use iTunes anymore. Do you use?
I use iTunes. I buy a ton of stuff on iTunes, I have to admit.
Me too.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this is all according to a report on TechCrunch. So apparently, you guys would be much welcomed in Europe if you're using.
I'll tell you what, though. I don't know if I could use Spotify for one reason.
Taylor Swift.
Taylor Swift is not available.
You got it, right?
We talked about
I know
your
totally
feelings about
called that.
Taylor Swift.
You know?
I know your feelings.
Are you going to go buy the
about
CD,
Taylor Swift.
though?
I mean, I bought her CD on iTunes, and although, I don't like the first track.
He wasn't into the New York
I'm shocked you didn't buy like a real physical.
Yeah, she's not Frank Sinatra, okay? But she's still damn good. And I need to hear everything else on that CD. You can't hear it on Spotify.
You got to hand it to her. She's amazing because she is an actual artist who has written a lot of these songs herself, but she's also a tremendous business person. And that's something that people say over and over again, that she's actually very hands-on and the real brains behind what her team is doing. She's been incredibly successful, obviously, on the social front. And the idea
She wrote an
that she
op-ed
can
to the
just
Wall
say,
Street Journal about this.
That's
She
right.
knows her
The idea
audience.
that she can take her money right off of still make money by taking her music right off of Spotify is pretty incredible.
Yeah.
Have you been working on being an Uber driver lately?
I've been trying. It's not easy. You've got to get, in New York, it's much more difficult than other cities. You've got to get like a commercial driver's license. You have to have commercial plates for your car, in my case, truck.
You have to have a car.
I think
allow an employer to let
our
you
viewers
work
might be
at a
really
job.
confused because we're talking about Uber. We usually have this big whoosh and then we say Uber at the bottom of the screen. There we go. All right, Uber's car financing program is facing allegations of subprime lending. The website Valleywag reports Uber is waging a, quote, aggressive campaign to get drivers with poor credit to apply for car loans. Without specifically addressing the issue, Uber responded to Bloomberg TV by saying, quote, we created Uber's program in response to consistent feedback from potential drivers about barriers to entry in owning a car. It provides drivers with access to financing that may not otherwise be available to them. It seems like they just can't get out from under the bad PR.
Yeah, they've had a lot of bad PR. Look, this is still an operation that's not legal in many places around the world, and essentially they're putting people with poor credit, subprime borrowers, getting access to these loans, guys who don't have the right credit, and they are facing high interest rates. I mean, this just spells disaster all over. We already saw the lessons, and hopefully people learned from the lessons from 2008, 2009. This is just a huge, huge issue that their company's going to have to deal with if they go forward with it.
And they're pitching, aggressive is a good way to put it. They have this very aggressive strategy to get into these new areas.
You think Travis Kalanick is aggressive?
Have you chatted with him? He's very intent on what he wants to do. So to bring in all of these people who may or may not have cars, who may or may not be making enough money to buy a new car, it seems like they've had to figure out a way to do it. And again, to your point, Mia, like whether or not this falls into an area that these borrowers can afford to pay back these loans could be up for debate if they're not making as much money on there.
Bottom line is, Uber wants to give you the best customer service it can while keeping your price reasonable.
It's like Walmart.
The way it does that and still make a lot of money for itself is squeeze the hell out of its drivers. They say partner drivers, but they're not partners. They want to use their credit, they want to raise their rates on them, and they want to lower the amount of money you give to them. So what they're trying to do is basically use the commodity of people in order to make money.
The article said indentured servant.
Yeah,
To give you a sense.
which is what taxi companies have done historically. So now Uber's
And you
doing
know what's
it.
interesting? You've seen that the credit markets have really loosened in the auto sector, right? Especially for a lot of the
For
used
sure.
cars.
It's much easier to get a car loan now.
So I guess you're not working on being an Uber driver soon. You're going to go.
Well,
work
I
for
know.
a-
I wanted to do it with my truck. You know, I have an F-150. I wanted to use that. It's got 4 doors, but apparently it's not on the list.
Apparently you're not going to
allowed.
make any money at it, though, because they're going to squeeze you, too. Anyway, Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg is hosting his first public town hall today at 5 p.m. Eastern. The New York Times says nearly 6,500 people have submitted questions in advance, and the event is going to be streamed live on Facebook. You guys have any questions for him?
One question I like, what's his favorite beer? I'm a stout kind of gal, but somebody
She
was
had a
writing in to
Heineken.
know, yeah.
Or he had a Heineken during one of the, I think, the opening, right? When they went public.
Yeah,
Heineken.
so it might be a Heine, but...
The question
didn't
I
really
would
list.
ask, this is the question I would ask. Do you have a prenup? That's what I would want to know.
I bet you he does.
I would bet you he does too, but...
If he's a responsible citizen, he does. You know,
Because he got married the day after he was worth $20 billion. And in California, you're not actually entitled to half if you don't have that on paper.
before the marriage.
Yeah. So,
Wow.
Interesting. California for you.
He has enough, I think, that even if he had to give away half, it would be like NBD, right?
Well, most of his money is now going to Ebola, so unclear.
Most of it, no, just a drop in the bucket. I think it's interesting that he's going to answer 6,500 questions. That's a lot.
Just a lot. All right,
Yeah.
I
final
wonder how
story
many
here.
he could do in an hour.
Aaron Sorkin may have found a new actor to play Steve Jobs in his upcoming film. Deadline reports Michael Fassbender is being considered for the role. Danny Boyle will direct the Sony film. It's based on, of course, Walter Isaacson's book about Jobs. You know, we're talking about how this might have been a little bit difficult to cast. I wonder how much is related to Ashton Kutcher and that flop of a movie. I mean, people were pretty excited about that, and it just didn't go anywhere.
And he was so excited in the lead up. You know, you saw Kutcher out really, yes, I'm embodying Jobs. You know, I'm so into the tech scene. And then, you
But
know.
the question is, could a guy that starred in Dude, Where's My Car actually
Seriously.
pull off Steve
That
Jobs?
70s
You know,
show.
Fassbender's in a very different bucket. And, you know, he was great in Inglourious Bastards, 12 Years a Slave. So if he
Wait.
takes it, it'd be great.
Ashton
Yes, he
Kutcher was in Inglourious Bastards?
No.
No.
Oh, Michael Fassbender. He was amazing in Inglourious
Great.
Bastards.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Probably the best
I thought you were
role he's
talking
ever
about
had.
A plus K. And here's the thing. I wasn't excited about the movie before it came out, and I didn't go see it after it came out. And now with the reports that it could be Michael Fassbender, and there was some other super hot dude that was going to play Steve
Christian
Jobs.
Bale, Leonardo
Christian
DiCaprio.
Bale. Do you think Steve Jobs ever would have realized that someone was going to try and cast like the most gorgeous men in Hollywood as him? It doesn't
Wear
make
black
any
turtleneck.
sense at all
Michael
to me.
Fassbender is the most
Turtleneck.
gorgeous man in Hollywood.
He's
but-
incredibly good looking.
I think Leonardo-
I mean, one man's opinion. But
I'm so proud that you can say that. I really am.
yeah. I mean, I even saw that
What about Seth
horrible
Rogen?
movie that he made with Justin
good.
Timberlake's ex-girlfriend.
Which one?
Yeah.
The one who was
Cameron
in Something
Diaz?
About Mary. Yeah. And Benicio del Toro, I think, was in it. That
the
was
thing.
very good.
I mean, like-
Michael Fassbender's incredibly good.
Steve Jobs is an amazing story, right? The whole thing is an absolutely amazing story. I don't know if you blame the actor in this case or if you blame the writer. I mean, at least in this case, you got Aaron Sorkin behind it. Pretty talented guy, great record of success. It's all in
Possibly
how you
completely
tell
insane,
a story.
by the
And
way.
you can tell the same story a million different ways.
It's gotta
And
come down
how
to
you tell it
casting,
matters.
too. If they can get Seth Rogen to play Steve Wozniak, I think this would be a done deal. And this is very different, right? It's a biopic, so it's going to be 3 specific times before 3 product launches. It's not going to be what you saw in the earlier movie.
I don't want to see a movie about a corporate mogul. It just doesn't move me. But what I do want to see is a movie about
Quite a
Aaron
work.
Sorkin. This guy, have you heard about his interview with Emily Chang? He takes 6 to 8 showers a day. 6 to
Why?
8 showers a day.
Hypercontract?
Aaron Sorkin. He says because when he runs out of ideas or something goes wrong, he gets back in the shower and comes back out. Because he
Okay.
really
Sure,
likes
he's
to write.
doing a lot more in the shower than just
The things you learn on Bloomberg Television.